Okay.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see Jaysee versus Pollsmor. I mean, I'm happy to see all of them, but that in particular should be like very, very close.
Yeah, I think gunert has, I believe, a 104, and
A
Ross
104?
is a
Yeah.
and Ross is a 46. So the only way Gunnert's gonna win that match is if Ross dies, I think.
I mean, we saw that happen with the first seed, so I wouldn't say it's
Yes, I'm
impossible.
not counting it out. It can happen, but I would not bet on it.
Ross has improved a lot in like just the last couple of weeks. He's been playing a hell of a lot. So, I mean, he might upset people. He might upset me. We have to play later, assuming everything goes according to bracket. According
This
to
kind of
seed.
what? Wait a minute. Okay. No, I might just be crazy. I'm gonna.
What happened?
Okay, so this is the first tornado of the game, and it's the easiest enemy to kill, and you basically just have to do that jump, and you basically get out of that room pretty quickly, and get to kill one enemy before you have text again. This game has a lot of text throughout the entirety of it, so one of the main optimizations, at least for RTA, is getting through the text as quick as possible.
Yeah, and since they're playing on English, there's it's like particularly slow.
Yeah, speaking of that, the Japanese version is like 3 or 4 minutes faster RTA, but the tournament's mostly on English due to accessibility mainly. And speaking of, that's why I got confused about 2 seconds ago. I glanced at Pollsmor's stream and I thought I saw Japanese text for a split second. That's why I was like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah, wouldn't have been the first time he made a mistake like that.
Yeah. So one of the things you've already seen is that they've been using wall jumping a little bit on that heading to this next doorway. It's wall jumping is used pretty decently in this game, but it's not. I wouldn't say it's as useful as in other games due to the fact you cannot wall jump along a single wall unless you're underwater without gravity suit. And even then, doing that's extremely difficult, and you won't see that really used.
Yeah, it like automatically pushes you really far away from the wall before you can move in the opposite direction. So it's mostly used as a complement to platforming as opposed to like a quick way to scale vertical room.
Another little minor platforming optimization you've already seen them do is that sometimes you'll see them, they sort of shoot as right before they land. This reduces your landing frames by a little bit and allows you to like quickly recover and jump up quicker to the next jump.
Right, when Samus is spinning, as soon as you shoot, her legs like sort of appear at the bottom of her sprite, so she touches the ground faster. And generally, staying on the ground is faster in this game, because walking speed is much faster than like your jumping speed.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty common constant across all the Metroid games. Pretty much every single one of them, you want to be on the ground as much as possible. And
yeah, and your momentum isn't carried over when jumping like it is in Super Metroid.
Yeah, that's another important component as well, because Super, you can sort of get away with it with a dash button and the fact that your momentum carries, but not so much in Fusion. So right now, it looks like Pollsmor is technically in first place, with Ross right behind and Jaysee in third and gunert in fourth. So Jaysee needs to catch up a little bit. And this is actually the first area of the first major RNG in the game. And Pollsmor got pretty lucky there, but the eye doors will shoot a certain number of beams that is completely RNG. I can't. What is the max number again? Do you remember offhand?
4 beams.
Yeah. So they might shoot off as many as 4 beams. Ideally, you want them to shoot off no beams, but they can shoot off as many as 4 in between each hit. Now, It's important to note right now, it takes 3 hits from missiles to kill an eye door. So, at the moment, that's 3 opportunities for the RNG to mess you up. But you can actually hit him with 2 missiles in the same frame, which is called a double, and that will allow you to reduce it by 1 missile hit, basically. You technically hit it 3 times, but you only have to actually worry about really hitting it twice, and that makes the RNG less impactful on you, and it's quicker, obviously.
Yeah. The idea of hitting with 2 missiles to sort of skip a period of invulnerability is pretty common in Fusion. There's a lot of bosses that have a lot of invulnerability after you hit them. So hitting 2 missiles sort of like skips a full round, which is incredibly. It saves a lot of time over the run. And there are different ways of doing it. Like we just saw the doubles on the eye doors, but we also saw doubles on the core that appeared after killing Arachnus, which is the first boss. So like there's a lot of things you have to double in the game to save time.
Yeah, this game definitely has a lot of little things you have to know, and especially like in the early game. Later on, Idor RNG won't be as bad because they will develop a way to kill it in 1 hit. But we still have at least 1 more Idor where they have to worry a lot more about the RNG.
Yeah, Fusion is very reset heavy at the beginning because of this. It's because there's so many chances of you getting a lot of additional beams that waste a lot of time.
So, as said before, this game tends to have a pretty good amount of cutscenes and text boxes you have to scroll through. And one thing I wanted to comment on, I didn't know so many of the other runners took it, but you notice gunert grabbed a missile there. That is the main deck missile, and it's generally one of the slower ones to grab, but it was actually grabbed by a lot of people for a long time, but people discovered it was actually one of the slowest ones to grab. But Sector 1 is it's very easy to take damage in Sector 1, and you need as many missiles as possible throughout the entirety of Sector 1 until you get Charge Beam.
Yeah, if you run out of missiles during Sector 1, especially near the end, then you're in real trouble, because there are enemies you can only kill with missiles, and you need missiles to kill the Idor.
So if you're a lower level runner, or you're just not confident in your Sector 1 as much, grabbing the main deck missile is not necessarily a bad idea.
Yeah, and like, we say it costs a lot of time, but that's like very, very relative. It's something like 6 or 7 seconds. For this game, it matters a lot, but like overall, it's like a very minor time loss.
So each of these stabilizers takes 3 missiles to kill, and that's part of where we mentioned before how you need missiles, especially early on, because for 1, you need to kill most of the enemies in 1 hit out of your way, and for 2, you need it to kill the stabilizers. The good thing about this game is that with the RNG, with the way the drops work, is that the less health you have, the more likely you'll get a health drop. Less missiles you have, more likely you'll get a missile drop. And also, every enemy is guaranteed to give you a drop. Drops one of the X's. And also, if you have full, like I said before, if you have full missiles, you will only get health drops. Or if you have full health, you only get missile drops. And if you have full of both, I think it's just pretty much random because you can't really get any more ammo at that point.
Right.
So you want to take no damage, or at least as little damage as possible to make sure you get missile drops.
Yeah. The fall JC did just a little while ago from now is like one of the more difficult parts of not getting hit in Sector 1. You have to sort of like descend that room without getting hit by pirates. And generally, if you shoot like 3 missiles down in a certain way, you will hit all of the pirates in the way. But sometimes you will still get hit by a beam, or there might be 4 pirates on the wall, or something like that. It's sort of a weird room. I think it might be consistent, but it requires that you fall in a very specific manner every time, which is hard to replicate.
Yeah, I think you might be right. I think there is a way you can do it, but it's hard. If you hug the right wall, as JC did on that fall, you basically, it's pretty much RNG how many pirates are going to be on the wall, and you can have very little, or like as many as like 5 or 6, I think, is the max, which is extremely rare, but if that happens and you're not expecting it, you're going to take a lot of damage, if not die.
So it looks like Ross caught up a little bit. I think he got less eye beams than Pollsmor did. And like I-beams are the great equalizer in this race. It can matter a lot, but it can also matter very little.
Yeah, so as you saw on that boss, they stood on that platform. They ideally, what they're trying to do there is to shoot 2 missiles into the Corex at the same frame. And it's a little bit harder with these Corexes because you have to hit the same exact spot. With the normal Corexes, you can hit them anywhere, so you can basically shoot up 2 missiles, right, one in front, one in back, and it'll run into both of them at the same time. But that's not really a thing for these Corexes. And you also saw JC did a little bit different strat. The strat that JC did to get doubles is the same strat you do to get Idor doubles at the start. And I believe that strat's slightly faster, but it's a bit harder to pull off.
It's kind of cool how Pollsmor and Rossu are following each other really closely, for the most part.
Yeah, they're pretty much room for room right now. At the very least, you can see Rossu's leaving the room as Pollsmor is entering it, so...
It's a shame they're not projected to meet in bracket.
I think that would have been a good matchup to have seen, which I've said that about a lot of matchups that haven't happened, but I've said that about a lot of matchups that did happen, so...
We have so many good matchups coming. It'll be really, really good once we get to like 3rd or 4th round.
Yeah. I'm especially looking forward to the match with Hubert, who is obviously apparently the best runner in the game right now since he was able to defeat JRP.
Yeah.
So that was a little bit of a funny story. The top seeded player died in his race, so he lost to the lowest seed.
Yep.
And
So he's
only. Hasn't that been like? Haven't we only had like 2 upsets in round 1 so far? And that was like one of the 2.
Yep, I think so. It's been a fairly consistent bracket, but JRP is like gonna tear up losers, so that'll be very unfortunate for whoever enters the losers bracket on his side.
Yeah, by doing that, some of the players who were not like top seeds, but like we're not in the top half of seeds, but are in the top half seeds of losers, will now get lost in round 1 probably.
Yeah, but I mean, stuff like this happens in tournament. You can't really blame any person.
Yeah. And of course, there's always the risk JRP dies again and he didn't save, so...
Yeah, we'll see.
But if I were JRP and I just lost round 1 of the tournament to the worst seed because I didn't save, and if I was playing a player much worse than me, I think I'd be a bit more cautious.
Maybe just do 1 save at some point.
Yeah, I'm expecting JRP is going to take a few safety saves in his next match.
Or maybe he won't. We'll see. Get a bit too cocky.
That's true. That might happen again. So now everyone has pretty much entered Sector 2 except for gunert. Sector 2 is a very kind of straightforwardish sector, but you still have to... A lot of times you will see them go one route, and then they will head back that way, but they won't be able to... They'll have to go a different way because the room's been partially destroyed. Since this is the first time you learn about Sax, they kind of showed off Sax a little bit without actually showing him by having it destroy a lot of rooms after you leave them. And so the first thing they need to do is go to the security room, and you'll notice the main enemy you're seeing here is the little caterpillar-like things crawling on the ground called Zoros. They take 1 charge beam to kill or 2 missiles. Because of the time it takes to kill them with charge beam, a lot of times if there's like 2 of them next to each other, a lot of times you may see the runners try to hit the first one with a charge beam and hit the other one with 2 missiles. And if they time it properly, they should not hit one of them. But if you do hit one, it takes a significant amount of damage, so it's really easy to die if you're not careful.
Yeah, I think it's 45 damage, and at this point they only have like 200 health, so it can add up if you're not careful.
Yeah, overall, Fusion is just extremely brutal when it comes to enemy damage. Especially late game, some of the enemies have like over 100 damage in some of their attacks.
Yep. Ideally, you only really want to grab one E-tank for any percent, but most runners opt to grab, well, 2 or 3 really. Maybe a little bit more if you wanted to play it safe. But I think like 3 is the average for most people. And that's usually good enough for everything.
I can't remember, did JRP do 1 E-tank for his 45 or no?
I don't know. But I'm guessing he would grab 3. I think that's what he always does.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too, but I don't know. Whenever he was grinding out his 45, he was kind of a bit... He basically did a lot of strats. I remember him trying to do a lot of strats he didn't normally go for, so I wasn't sure if he just wanted to do that or not. Which I guess if you're going for 45, I could sort of see the logic of if I've taken enough damage to lose 3 tanks, my run's probably dead anyway.
Yep. And I mean, it doesn't actually save that much time. It's something like 3 seconds. But again, that's like a lot in relative terms, since the game is pretty optimized.
Yeah, especially if, like I said, you're going for a 45 when you have a 46. That's a whole... That's like... Really, that's the equivalent of 1/5 of your total... of the goal you're trying to... of the amount of time you're trying to save. Yep. If you have a high 46.
So now that they have charge beam, they can one-hit doors. It makes them go quite a bit faster. Of course, it's still very possible that you'll get 4 beams, but at the very least, you can kill them after whatever you get from the first wave. And Pollsmor got 4 beams, which is pretty unfortunate.
Yeah. So on the boss you're seeing Rossu fighting and Pollsmor fighting right now is Azabi. He's kind of RNG. He goes through, I believe, 3... No, I can't count. It's 4 phases, but what happens is at the start of every phase, he will jump a random number of times, and there's a different number of how many times he can jump for each round. But the least amount of jumps you can get overall is 3, and that's ideally what runners want. But you can also have up to 12. So
yeah, it's terrible.
And for each round, you need to do the equivalent of 1 perfect charge beam shot and a missile. But a lot of runners will actually fire 2 missiles in case their charge beam doesn't land perfectly. Because if you don't do the correct amount of damage, he will land and he'll start jumping again, and you'll have to finish him off again, and that's even more RNG. So not only do you get the time loss from him from not doing the max amount of damage and having to hit him again, you also have the time loss because he will have the RNG jumps again. Only the last phase, only on the very last phase you see does he only jump once. He doesn't even do it, he just goes straight into the attack.
Yeah, again, that's like a big source of time waste early on. So, like, for the first 20 minutes of Fusion, there's a lot of RNG elements, and it's generally, like, really, really reset heavy. At this point, I want to say that RNG, like, goes away for a little bit. It's still going to be there because of idols, but it's generally much less than at the beginning.
So I did not see if Ross did this, but I know Pollsmor did it. When he was in the room with the sacks, you noticed he alerted the sacks to attack him and jumped over him, and this is called sack skip. Basically, you alert the sacks, and you get around it in order to leave the room a little bit quicker. That sack skip is like is not done by a lot of runners, because if you fail it, you're pretty much guaranteed death.
Yeah, it's scary, and I mean, I'm not too surprised Pollsmor did it, because that's just the kind of person he is.
Yeah.
It's risky though, like he could have lost this race right there. There was probably no way he would catch up to JC at that point.
Yeah, his only hope at that point would be for JC to die as well. Because I know, given how close these runners are, I don't think JC is going to take many safety saves, if any. They are way too close in time for him to want to take that risk.
I think Pollsmor does a different sack skip too. There's like the optimal one, and then there's a I personally use that one. There's like an easier one that I sort of discovered on my own.
He did your wall jump setup.
Yeah, like it's not really my setup because people have found similar setups in the past, and like it just hasn't been used much. But it's something I started using, and I guess some people also started using that, since I personally feel it's easier, and I think Pollsmor does too.
Yeah, it saves a bit less time, but it being safer is a huge
Yeah,
benefit there.
it's very appealing, especially for a trick like that.
It's still more time than waiting for Sax to leave the. It's still more time saved than waiting for Sax to leave the room. So.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm assuming Gunert's not going to go for it. I would not take that risk if I were him. So obviously now we see Pollsmor and, well, everyone except for Gunert is in Sector 4. And this sector, if you'll notice, there's electrified water. And a lot of times the runners will actually go into the water in order to progress to a different platform a little bit quicker. It's usually quicker than having to like go across the little railings and stuff that the game normally wants you to use.
You don't take too much damage from doing it, so like you may as well.
Yeah, it's faster and it's not that risky.
So the boss they're coming up to in a little bit, it's not really like super hard or anything. The idea is that if you fire 2 point blank charge shots, you can kill it in 2 rounds. The problem is getting into position for the final charge shot. At the beginning of the fight, it'll always move in the same way, so there's a very, very easy way to hit the first charge shot. But you're never guaranteed to get the same pattern for the second shot, so you gotta react properly, and like that's harder than it sounds because it's a fast boss.
Yeah, once he commits to a pattern, you sort of know where he's gonna go. But given how quickly he moves, even when he's not in his little speed booster mode, it can be very tough to land the shot.
And if you like don't hit with point blank on, see, it happened to Ross. He didn't hit point blank for the second one, so now it goes invincible again, and he has to wait for a full round again. So that wastes quite a bit of time.
So Pollsmor got the first shot, right? He just needs to get the second one now. Yeah, so I think Pollsmor's fight went perfectly, or at least good enough. So now he just needs to destroy the Core X and move on.
Yeah, he was a bit slow to get the second shot, but it's probably still faster than like missing the second shot and having to wait out the invulnerability.
Yeah, and one thing you saw that, I guess Pollsmor's about to do it, and you just saw Ross do it. If you notice, they sort of did a Shine Spark in like a 2-block high wall. This is a low height Shine Spark, and it's usually done in order to basically make you do a Shine Spark when you're pretty much right up next to the ground. And it gives you access, and it's used like a few times in the game to give you access to a few longer sparks that you normally wouldn't be able to use. You're actually going to see it again before they leave this sector, assuming anyone gets it. And it will allow them to sort of travel a bit farther with their spark and instead of having to re-get another spark. And that saves a bit of time.
Yeah, there's sort of a setup for getting the low height Shine Spark exiting the sector, but it's still a somewhat tight window. But you'll see them going into Morph Ball and then unmorphing like at the very last second. And that sort of stalls them in the air a little bit and makes the window slightly bigger, but it can still be hard to do. I see Ross failed it.
Yeah, as you can see, both Ross and Pollsmor kind of failed it. As you saw, Pollsmor, he bonked in that wall, so he had to go back and get that speed booster. If he had gotten the low height, he would have just sparked right across there and would not have needed to have done that.
I think it loses about 4 seconds or something. It's not too bad, but I mean, stuff adds up.
I think one of the runners will at least get it. Oh no, that was really bad on JC's part.
It's all up to Gunert now.
Okay, so JC he sparked the wrong direction, and he also didn't get the low height, so it was he was too far off the ground anyway.
I mean, if you see you're not getting it, then sparking to the left is probably smarter since you get into position faster.
Yeah. But it is very difficult to react to you missing it. So now you can sort of see the gap is widening a bit, at least between the runners. especially between Gunert and Rossu. As you can see, Gunert's already fighting the boss as the team, everyone else is pretty much about to go enter or already entering the next sector. And I think Gunert missed his first shot on Saris. I'm not entirely sure.
It's kind of hard to tell.
He did miss
like
it,
yeah.
Because I saw the blue. Yeah. As you can see, Gunert kind of missed the shot, and you can see that Saris is still blue colored. That means you missed your first shot. So at minimum, it's going to take him 2 more charge shots to kill the boss.
Yeah, it kind of stinks. I think most people, when they start playing this game, will probably use missiles on Saris, in which case it takes like 5 hits, because missiles are like laughably weak in this game early on. And they kind of stay that way for the entirety of the game.
Yeah, so Gunert's kind of a 4-shot charge shot. Okay, so one thing Pollsmor didn't do it, and I don't know if Jaysee will get it or not. But at the start of this, there's a bit of a frame perfect shine spark you can do, or a frame perfect shine store that you can do in order to store your shine spark. Whenever you jump while you have a speed boost going on, you have like 1 frame where as you're landing, you can actually store your spark. It's obviously frame perfect trick, so it's extremely difficult to do, but if you can do it, it gives you get a few more tricks you can do with it.
It's also scary because if you end up pressing down too soon, you'll not break all of the wall. So you have to go like all the way around instead of taking the little shortcut that the game gives you by breaking the speed blocks.
Yeah. Oh, Pollsmor, don't be a pause buffer. Come on, man.
I mean, Ross missed it, so I guess pause buffering it is better than that. But here you want to like break the speed blocks and store your shine spark at the same time. It's a pretty tight window, and it saves a little bit of time if you get it. It's not really that much, but it's worth going for.
Yeah, there are a few other times where they have tricks they could possibly do involving that frame perfect store, but most of them you won't even see them go for because they lose time if you mess them up, or like a noticeable amount of time over not trying to do it. Like, I don't expect us to be seeing anyone trying reverse ice right now.
Like both Pollsmor and Ross missed that trick you can do after getting super missiles. You're sort of speed boosting into the room where you get the super missiles, and if you slide a little bit and then store your shine spark, then you have enough time to shine spark out of the room again, but only if you like get that little sliding animation, and it looks like Pollsmor missed it.
Okay, so now Rossu just defeated the box fight, and we can see Pollsmor entering it. When you start off the fight, you ideally want to shoot either a charge beam and a super missile, or like I believe 2 supers or a super into box, or at the very start of the fight, because it will force him to sort of start out jump. And his movement isn't really that difficult to manipulate, but you basically want to shoot as many charge shots into him as possible.
Jaysee got the trick with the shine spark I was talking about. Good on him.
Yeah, if you notice, all 3 of our runners had a pretty good box fight from what I saw.
Yeah, it looks pretty good. Better than mine, usually.
You also want to kill box to the right, as far right as possible, because he has to walk all the way over to the right end of the screen and jump up in order to end the fight officially. And if he's on the left side of the screen, obviously it takes a pretty long time for him to get over there. That's also why you see the runner, part of the reason you see the runner start off with trying to shoot a super and a charge beam into him at the very start, because it makes him it stops him from walking all the way to the left, which he usually tries to do at the start of the fight.
Yep. Jaysee was a little careful exiting Sector 3 there. Part of it probably because he was low on health, but also because he was low on missiles. Going into Sector 6, you ideally want to have 3 missiles, because there's a mine you need to destroy and they take 3 missiles to kill. And that's like the only thing you need missiles for in Sector 6. You can grab a missile a little bit earlier and waste a little bit of time, but it's generally recommended to grab that missile pack on the way back instead.
Yeah, if you miss the if you don't have enough missiles entering Sector 6, Your options are to either get that missile expansion early and lose a bit more time, or there's a shine spark you can use and store that will let you spark through the barrier. And those are pretty much your two options if you do not have enough missiles at the start of this sector.
I mean, I personally think Sector 6 is pretty easy. There's not really too many enemies on your first trip through Sector 6. You're basically just avoiding these blue X's that, while they do a lot of damage, they're relatively easy to avoid.
I think there's a lot of paranoia to it, to how much damage the blue X's do.
Yeah. I mean, they're scary, but at the same time, if you just sort of walk through the sector as you're supposed to, you'll never hit them.
Yeah, as you can see, Rossu got through there pretty cleanly without even getting touched by a single one. And JC and Pollsmor even destroyed one of the blocks containing one and still able to avoid it, which I think is technically supposed to be actually be faster. So
I believe so, yeah.
And as you can see here, JC does the Shine Spark I was telling you about. I thought he had enough missiles, and he might have. I just don't know why he did the Spark, but...
He did it for the cool points. I can respect that. It does look pretty cool.
Yeah, it is a nice spark to get, but it is a bit too slow. Now, right here you see Ross do another sack skip. There, he manipulates Sax by waiting for him to walk a bit after laying the power bomb and shooting him in the back. That triggers Sax to like turn around and shoot at you, or turn around and run after you. And whenever he does that, he'll basically jump over you, and that gives you an opportunity to jump back up and run away.
Yeah, it's a very, very simple skip. So, like, even if you're new to the game, you should be able to do it.
That's honestly probably the easiest, or at the very least one of the easiest sack skips in the whole game.
Yeah, definitely. Ross has gotten very good RNG throughout this entire run. Pollsmor is sort of getting a little less good RNG. I think he got 2 beams on the door just now, as opposed to Ross's no beams.
Yeah, Ross kind of... The only thing I've seen, the major thing, he did sort of screw up the Megacore X fight. I think he shot him, like, I think he had a 5-shot one.
Oh, that's scary. Being low on health in that boss fight is really, really scary because the core does a lot of damage. You really don't want to get nicked by it, and Ross is opting to do single missiles on the core instead, which I can totally understand at this point because he really does not want to die.
Yeah, so for the Core X fight, the Mega Core X fight, ideally you want to damage boost yourself inside of it with a standing jump, and then shoot it while you're inside of it. That allows the flare part of the charge beam to hit, and the main part of the charge beam to hit. So the charge beam has 2 components to it, being the flare and the main part. And we mentioned earlier about the Saris fight. You want to hit Saris, whenever they fought Saris, they want to hit him with both parts of it, because that was the only way you could force the fight to end in 2 hits. That's why you might have noticed that we said the runner missed it, even though they still hit Saris with the charge beam. It means they missed with the flare part, or they missed with the charge part. And with Megacore X, you want to damage boost into him and hit him with both parts. And if you do it properly, it's a 4-hit boss, but if you don't do it properly, it can very easily go into like 5, 6 hits or even more.
So Pollsmor basically caught up to Ross just because he had a much better fight than Ross did.
Yeah, I believe that's actually a prime example of that. I believe Pollsmor actually had the 4-hit fight, and I think Ross actually had a 5 or 6-hit fight. So
yeah,
that actually put him behind.
Got a lot more doubles on the Core X as well, which really helps.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest time saver, honestly.
He's ahead now.
Yeah, so all of our runners all of our main 3 runners are fairly close to each other, but as you can see, Rossu and Pollsmor are the farthest ahead at the moment. JC will definitely need to catch up a little bit if he wants to win his match.
It's definitely not over yet, though. Like he can catch up.
Yeah, especially further we get in the late game, not only does like the risk of people being able to catch up increase, the risk of dying increases. So we kind of like poke fun with for Pollsmor because he died to a boss called Nightmare, which is later on, which is actually a fairly dangerous boss if you don't know how to manipulate it properly. But you'll see that pretty commonly with a lot of the late game bosses. There's a very real risk of dying if you make a few mistakes.
So I like to call this part of the game the really boring part. There's a lot of going back and forth between main deck and Sector 5, and like it's sort of repeating what you've already done a lot of times. You're sort of just walking in circles basically, getting upgrades, and there's not a lot of action. But like right after that, there's I think there's like a trio of boss fights, right? One after another. So there's like something to look forward to after that.
Yeah, it goes from like a fairly boring section to like the opposite extreme, where they just keep tossing boss after boss at you. So they go from one extreme to the other, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. So like in Sector 5, you have to sort of go through this loop in order to get into the data room to get ice missiles. Later on, you have to get power bombs, and you sort of have to go through the same loop one more time. So it's not uncommon for runners to forget what part of the game they're at when they're repeating Sector 5, because you have to like do the same section like 2 times.
Yeah, there's sort of an inside joke. I believe it's called pulling a secret key, which is where you will go and you will try to grab ice missiles again after you've already grabbed them.
Yeah.
So hopefully now the runners will do that, but if they do, it's a pretty big time loss because it forces you to go through the second half of the loop again if you do that. Because there's a one-way gate into the data room, so if you go to the data room when you've already got the item, you have to go through the second part of that loop again. So
yeah, on the flip side, you can also forget to grab ice missiles just because like the exit route is pretty much the same as the one you use when going to ice missiles. So you can either like leave too early or leave too late. You need to make sure you're awake during this part.
Definitely. The run picks up in difficulty at this point, and this is a bad spot to make a mistake just because of the time loss. You can make pretty much harmless mistakes and you've lost like half a minute. That's definitely not something you want to have happen. So Pollsmor is winning his match by a pretty noticeable amount, and he's also ahead of all the other runners in their races. So
yeah, I think Pollsmor is like almost 40 seconds ahead of Jaysee at this point. It'll be very tough to make the comeback, but it's very possible.
Yeah, which actually sort of lines up with their PVs a little bit because Pollsmor has a 47 in-game time and Jaysee has a 48, but it's still a bit... Fusion does not keep track of seconds, so the only other way where it keeps track of seconds, but it does it behind the scenes. Whenever it shows you your in-game time, it doesn't show you the seconds. You can see the seconds if you have an emulator and you have a way of viewing memory, but otherwise you don't really know what your seconds are.
The game keeps track of seconds, but it just doesn't show them, which is really annoying.
Yeah, so I believe we think Jaysee has a low 48 and Pollsmor has a high 47. So there's probably less than a minute between their PVs, but it's still they're both very close, but it's very easy for one person to get a minute ahead in this game, so you got to be careful. Even if your PVs are close, it doesn't mean your race is going to be close.
Yep. Oh yeah, it's that time of the run again.
Oh yeah, Ross or Pollsmor is in. So this section of the run is commonly referred to as emergency in Franker Z, primarily because the game calls it emergency in Sector 3, which sort of sounds like that.
Yeah, I mean, GBA sound clips aren't that good.
Yeah. And this section is actually one of the most difficult sections. You need to have a pretty high missile count before you go in this sector because you're going to be freezing a lot of enemies with your ice missiles to sort of jump over them and avoid them. And you'll notice that it has some pretty tough spots. It's not uncommon to see a lot of damage taken in this area.
I mean, it's a timed section, but time isn't really like a big issue. You're not going to run out of time during this section, but you still want to go fast, obviously, since it's a speed run.
Yeah, and going fast is very difficult in this section, at least.
There's like a couple of cool things you do in this section. You want to kill some enemies in such a way that you can keep moving without stopping. You want to sort of make sure some of the enemies don't stop you, and there's a lot of them that try to drop fire on you or are just plain in the way. And like you even have to use some enemies as platforms using ice missiles to save a bit of time. So there's like some cool platforming and shooting in this section.
Yeah, so Pollsmor has basically made it out. Now he's going to be fighting the... I believe this is actually the second beam Core X that we've seen, which is the wide beam Core X, which they decided to change the name from Spacer for no apparent reason.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows why?
That is one of the few things that still confuses me. I don't really know why they changed that name. But one of the things I don't think we mentioned was that as you get each missile upgrade, the cooldown in between missiles you can fire, for one, you can only have 2 missiles on screen at once. And for 2, as you get more missile upgrades, I believe it's the slower they get, and the more the cooldown increases.
Yep.
So doubles become significantly more difficult to do. And right here, you can actually trap this Core X under a platform like they could with the first one, but you actually can't get doubles with that because you don't have enough room to sort of to place your missiles properly. So there you sort of saw them do like a different setup for it in order to actually be able to get doubles on it. I believe JC got first double.
It's a weird sort of setup where like doing a wall jump off the wall just perfectly coincides with setting up a double. It's sort of weird that it works, but it does, and it's very consistent. So that's what most runners go for.
Yes, it is. It is thankfully that's one of the easier double steps to get. And from this point on, they will get another upgrade, which basically allows for a little bit easier double setups as well. So thankfully, past this point, the double setups are fairly easy to do, but there's still a bit of difficulty to them. This is definitely one of the most free double setups in the game, though.
So after this point, it's back to main deck for a little bit for a detour, and then it's back to Sector 5 again, and then sort of the game ramps up a little bit after that.
So as I said before, as the run goes on, the PB differences and the player skill difference can become a bit more obvious. As you can sort of see here, gunert has not actually, he hasn't even started emergency yet, so he's pretty noticeably far behind everyone else at this point. And it's not uncommon to see that with lower level runners versus high level runners. It is very common to see runners be a whole sector or more ahead.
Yeah, there's a pretty noticeable gap between the two runners on the bottom, but I mean, he has a losers bracket to go through as well if he loses. And I mean, if Ross messes up at some point, I don't think he's saved yet, so that could potentially mess him up.
At this point, they're 40 minutes into the run. Gunnert's PB is a bit over 10 minutes worse than Ross's, but since they're 40 minutes in, if Ross dies at this point, it isn't recoverable. His only chance of winning it would be if gunert dies as well. So if you're a Super Metroid runner, you might want to avert your eyes in a little bit, because our runners are currently going to save the animals. This is unfortunate. Unlike Super Metroid, this is actually kind of a required segment of the game, and the animals actually apparently run happy with speedrunners because of Super, and they are basically complete RNG how fast they get out of this area, and you need to wait for them to get out before you can actually progress. So, and since it's complete RNG, you can lose in a pretty good a few seconds here.
Yeah, honestly, of all RNG things in this game, this is probably like the biggest slap in the face, just because you're sort of completely immobile and just waiting for the animals to get into place. And they can be really slow sometimes. It's terrible.
Yeah, I think Pollsmor's wasn't like it was kind of bad. I've seen worse, so.
Ross had to wait quite a bit for the last one, but I mean, I want to say it was only a little worse than average. Could be much worse.
Yeah, it's a lot of times it's the last one, especially. It seems to take forever. And if you saw there, JC did a little bit of a recently discovered setup in order to make sure he speed boosted over that last block and was able to short a Stein Spark. Previously, runners would try and like store it on the crumble block, which was, I believe that was frame perfect, or at least close to it. It was very tight timing, but there was a setup that was, I think it's kind of been known for a while, but people started doing it more, and it allows you to get that sword spark more consistently with no time loss, or big time loss anyway.
I think it was actually because we found a similar setup for one of the Shine Sparks in Zero Mission, and then we sort of just applied it to Fusion as well.
Yeah, that would make sense. I heard that it had been like, at least something similar had been discovered already, and then people decided to adopt it to Fusion.
Yeah. There's a shine break you have to do at the end of Zero Mission where we found a similar setup, and that helped a lot because there was like a notoriously annoying part of like the final minute of the game. But now it's gotten a lot easier.
I actually know which spot you're talking about now.
You don't know what I'm talking about. It's for the final Shine Spark in Zero Mission.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was saying. I was remembering it's for the...
Oh, yeah, okay. I thought you said you didn't know.
No, I said I did know. That's what I was... It's the one after the robot, correct? You move the robot out of place? Yeah. So now all the runners, they're going to go through Sector 5 one last time to get the Power Bomb upgrade. And there's going to be... I don't want to call it a sack skip, because it's not really much of a sack skip. You don't really... I mean, you do it mostly because it's faster to do... You lay a Power Bomb in a room where Sax comes in after you, and it causes Sax to chase after you, but you're not necessarily... It feels weird to call it a sack skip, because most of the sack skips usually require some form of evading the sacks, but for this sack skip, you just keep going. You're not really trying to avoid it, you're just kind of holding left, basically, and doing a morph ball jump.
I mean, you could sort of die in that section if you're slow and get hit by the ice beam, because she'll snipe you, but even if she does that, you have a lot of time to react to her, so shouldn't happen.
You will probably... There's a good chance you'll have to jump over an ice beam shot, but that's about it. And actually, Pollsmor is about to be in that room that I was talking about now. He's entering it just now. It's also important to note that whenever you lay a power bomb, while it's going off, you can't ledge grab. That's why he did the morph jump there, so he'd get in that hole and he didn't have to ledge grab. As you can see, he was quick, so he didn't have to jump over the ice beam, but I think you're probably going to have to see at least one runner jump over it.
The fact that you can't grab ledges when there's a power bomb explosion is actually super annoying in a couple of places. But people have learned to play around that, so it's not really a big deal anymore, but it will be convenient in a couple of places.
Yeah, I know at least of one other major spot, but it's in 100% only, so...
Yeah. Power bombs are like fairly useless in this game. They're mostly used for breaking power bomb blocks, but you have to get them, and you get a lot of them. You get 10 when you get the upgrade, and you won't need half of that for the most part.
Yeah, and the game has no shortage of power bombs. If you do 100%, it's either 72 or 74 power bombs
like
that it actually will give you. And like, I don't even know if like you ever need more than 10 in 100%. So
I don't think so. Like, I don't think there's any point where you would expend 10 of them unless you were deliberately wasting them.
Yeah. So the game's kind of overdoes it with the power bombs.
It also has to do with the fact that main upgrades in this game don't count for percents. So you can do 0% in this game despite collecting all the main upgrades, as long as you don't get any ammo tanks or energy tanks.
Yeah, 0% is actually fairly difficult to do because it requires one of two tricks. Previously, it was thought to be impossible, but there was a trick discovered which allowed you to do a series of shine sparks that are... You have 7 frames of air, and you have to do a series of jumps and a shine spark at the end. And you have 7 frames of air to do this trick, and there's quite a few jumps, so it's really difficult to do. But recently, we made a discovery on, I believe, all the versions except for the Japanese, and I believe in the IQ version that no one has found a legitimate copy of, that allows you to do a little bit of a clip, an out-of-bounds clip that allows you to go past the unskippable missile. And that clip trick can actually be used to save time in a few areas, but being able to do it RTA is a bit inconsistent.
So Pollsmor didn't save, but Ross did save. I guess it's a good idea to play it safe. I mean, I guess it makes sense because Ross can afford to save and probably still win. I'm not sure Pollsmor can because JC is not that far behind.
Yeah, that's why Ross he doesn't want to risk what happened at JRP. He most certainly does not want that to happen.
They added into one of the more notorious bosses in this game called Yakuza. In addition to being a fairly difficult boss when you're starting out with the game, it's also very random in the amount of time you can waste. So you can potentially lose a lot of time if he decides to do a lot of extra rounds for no reason.
Yeah, so right off the bat, well, he's not in the Yakuza fight yet, I'll wait. Okay, so at the start, you want to try and... You can actually damage Yakuza as he enters the fight, but you have to sort of... You'll notice he's jumping up. He's doing that because you have to scroll the screen up in order for your missiles to actually count. And now, Yakuza has a random number of rounds, so it'll go around the screen, and it can be from 1 to 4. And Pollsmor got lucky, that was only a 2-round, but one thing you notice is he let himself get grabbed by Yakuza. That was intentional. Doing that speeds up. Whenever you get grabbed by Yakuza, you want to smash left and right in order to get out of him as quick as possible. And if you do it properly, you'll actually save time over waiting for him to go all the way through around the screen.
Yeah, it basically ends the round prematurely. And if you do it fast enough, it's faster than waiting for him to like move all the way up and down.
Yeah, so Pollsmor is consistent enough of that where he was able to take advantage of that to save a bit of time. And since his RNG was fairly favorable, it worked out for him.
It looks like they both got a decent second phase.
Yeah, so Rossu and Pollsmor both had a very good phase. Now we're seeing JC starting to do his. Was that a 1 round or?
No, it wasn't.
Okay. I'm sorry, I got focused on Ross and I looked away and I thought the fight was starting. I turned back and the phase was over, so I wasn't sure.
It is difficult to watch 4 people at once.
Yeah. So JC, as you can see here, they do kind of a similar setup to get doubles. Before you get space jump, this is a pretty common strategy to get doubles, is to wall jump off a wall to push the X as high up as possible, and then follow up by trying to shoot 2 missiles right in front of each other and have it run into both of them. Once I get space jump, you'll see the strat change a little bit. Primarily because you can't wall jump while you have space jump. So you can't really do that setup anymore. So instead you're going to see them like space jump up to a certain height and try to get... And they will try to space jump up to a certain height and then land and then try to shoot up 2 missiles as the X is coming down. And hopefully have them both hit it.
So the 3 runners in the lead right now are heading to a boss called Netori. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. It's like a notorious bottleneck for ammunition in this game, since the reason you collect that many missile tanks is basically for that boss. It takes a lot of missiles, and like killing it with charge beam is really slow. And every missile tank basically pays for itself just by being used on this boss.
Yeah, it saves a noticeable amount of time to get missiles on this boss, because for one, your beam doesn't do that much damage yet, and also... Ooh, that was... okay. So, right here is another one of those core X's I was telling you about, to where, like, you have to hit the one exact spot at the same time. And the strat here is basically just space jump up, and I think Pollsmor actually did a perfect... he got both doubles, right?
Yep, he did.
So he actually had a perfect fight on the Core X, at least. Not so much on Netori, but on the Core X. And you ideally want to space jump above it and then hit it with 2 missiles as you're falling down. But if it's too close to the top, like I mentioned before, each of your missile upgrades increases the cooldown before you can fire your second missile, and it slows them down. So if there's not enough height, you can't really do the double. So if he's too close to the ceiling, well, you're kind of out of luck.
Yeah, once again, it's one of those setups that just sort of happen to work out. It's kind of interesting in that you just barely have enough space to get a double if you're falling, and it just so happens to be pretty easy if you do it that way.
So I think JC, he got a perfect Core X fight too, it looks like. I honestly thought he missed both doubles, but no, he didn't. So, and I didn't see Rossu's fight. I'm assuming it was pretty good too as well.
Yeah, they all got a really good fight.
So Netori's over, and the only person who will still have to fight him is Gunert now, and so by this point, the power is back online. If you weren't paying attention to the story, the power got knocked off. The power is now fully back online, and now they're going to be heading once again, but for the last time, thankfully, to Sector 5. And this is where they'll be fighting the boss I mentioned earlier, called Nightmare. And this boss, again, can be really difficult if you don't know how to manipulate him properly. And I'm going to wait for them to get into the fight before I explain it, but this boss can very easily kill you if you're not careful.
At least they're heading to a new part of Sector 5 this time, instead of the same loop. Gunert is doing part of the loop right now, and I'm like, this part again.
Yeah, so you can see here, Gunert kind of did the safe strat for getting out of that room. Power Bomb's obviously a lot faster, but he doesn't have to evade sacks now, I guess, so that's a plus.
Yeah, makes sense.
So as you'll notice, Pollsmor is doing a little bit of a spark right now. This is an extremely long spark at the this basically Fusion's really long spark, which you will almost always see people mention how every Metro game is a really long spark. This is Fusion's really long spark. You can actually do a space boost through that whole area, and it's a little bit quicker, but significantly more difficult.
It's significantly more difficult because every time you hit one of the transitions, the game sort of pushes you really close to the ground for some reason. It's really weird that it does that. Like, not all doors do that, but just those couple of transitions do. So you have to time your jump perfectly after every transition, and it's just really difficult.
Which I always thought that was kind of weird. I don't know if they just didn't test it or if they didn't plan on people being able to spark through that. I'm not sure.
I have no idea. My theory is that it, like, the room state has changed or something, so it sort of warps you in the room instead of, like, I don't even know. but like, it's a different part of Sector 5 as opposed to what you were in earlier. Like, the room has changed.
So you can see Pollsmor is starting off the Nightmare fight. Right off the bat, the once you do enough damage to him, he has basically 3 phases of this fight. Pollsmor's already in the 3rd phase. The first phase is like really, really short. You saw a plasma beam and a missile was enough to exit that phase. But for that first phase, he kind of moves around the room a little bit, and you just want to hit him with a charge beam and his weak little gun spot underneath him with a charge beam and a missile. His second phase, gravity physics alter, and your missiles drop to the ground. So you would think, oh, I must just use beam. Well, actually, okay, Pollsmor's doubles are really on point tonight. But back to the fight. For the second phase, actually, if you jump up and you like basically you're touching almost his little gun spot, you can fire a missile at point blank and it will damage it. So you want to shoot a charge beam and jump up and hit it with a missile for that second phase. And then for the third phase, you'll want to attach yourself to that little the little ladder on the left side. And as it's coming across, you'll want to shoot it with a charge shot followed by missiles. But once it gets to the ladder, Nightmare will move and start moving around the room. And you can manipulate his movement a little bit. And you want to manipulate it to where he will basically start coming towards you again after a certain amount of time. And you can see JC, he kind of messed up a little bit there, but he was still able to get the kill. But that's when it's most dangerous, because manipulating it can be fairly difficult, especially if you're unfamiliar with it, and you can very easily die.
JC was already kind of low on health, so it was a little bit scary.
Yeah, and this fight is very notorious on low percent for that reason, because you don't have a single E-tank, so when it's moving around the room, you get hit like a few times and it's over.
Yep.
So now all of our runners are going to be entering entering the area called Lower Sector 4. This is one of the most dangerous sector areas, if not the most dangerous. I think it's the most dangerous, but a lot of the enemies here do a lot of damage, and it's really easy to die very quickly. And on top of that, it's kind of a bit more difficult to navigate around without getting hit. It's not uncommon to see runners die here. This is like definitely I would say this is the most common area to see runners die outside of a boss.
On the flip side, I think there's some cool movement and some cool platforming in this section in general. It's like a very satisfying section to do.
Yeah, for those reasons Eagle stated and for the difficulty, this is a section where when you go through here without taking damage, it feels great.
You don't necessarily want to take damage. There's a couple of places where it's fine, but yeah. There's a lot of enemies you can kill in advance, so you shouldn't take too much damage if you do it correctly.
Yeah, so, and this whole area, that I technically would say ended because of Nightmare, it's sort of a little boss gauntlet, because you had Yakuza followed by Netherite, then Nightmare. Now they're kind of out of the boss gauntlet, but it doesn't really slow down that much. They have Lower Sector 4, and then they have to go back to Sector 6, and they will basically be in a boss gauntlet-like area again, where they'll have to fight. They will have to fight, basically 4 bosses up to the end of the game in a very short amount of time again. And those 4 bosses will be in order: Xbox, which is the evolved form of the little Core X, or of the box fight you saw in Sector 3 earlier. Then Ridley, then Sax, and then the Omega Metroid in the game will be over. So, even though Lower Sector 4 is kind of hard, it's pretty much the only break you're getting from bosses for a while. So Gunert's... So one important thing to note is that Gunert's fight is not going too well. I believe the charge beam at this point technically does slightly more damage to Yakuza, but you can actually damage it with missiles a bit quicker than with charge beam. And he's trying to use the charge beam strat, which can be really hard. As you can see here, he's already taken a ton more damage, especially compared to what the other runners were taking, so he needs to be careful and not die.
Yeah, I'm not sure why he's not using missiles, actually. He has a lot of them.
Yeah, I think he just doesn't know the missile strat, or he's not as familiar with it, at least.
He used missiles at the beginning, though, so I'm not sure what's going on.
Yeah, Gunert's more of a prime runner, so I would not be too surprised if he does not know the missile strat as well. So, obviously you can see now that JC has gotten an already JC just got the diffusion missile upgrade, which Rossu and Pollsmor have already gotten, and that upgrade basically allows you to sort of do a charged missile shot that causes a spreading arc of ice that freezes the enemies that hit by it. It's pretty much exclusively used to to freeze enemies that are out of your shot range. But other than that, it's just kind of an extra thing that slows down your missiles.
They do a little bit of extra damage compared to ice missiles, but it's very insignificant.
Yeah. And the good thing about, well, I mean, at this point, the good thing, the fusion missiles, it is nice, they give you a little bit extra damage, but it does sort of stink that it makes your missiles slower and stuff, like all the other upgrades. So now Pollsmor is about to go and fight the Xbox fight. Xbox is, like I said before, the evolved form of the Core X that you've already fought. And for this fight, he's basically going to play it the same way as the previous fight, but Xbox's main attack is different. Instead, he'll stop and he'll shoot these missiles at you that you must kill with your plasma beam. Thankfully, because of your upgrades, your beam has a pretty wide coverage area, so it's pretty easy to destroy them. And for this Core X, they won't go for doubles because it's just simply, it's technically doable, but humanly doable, not so much.
Yeah, unfortunately, this room is like too small to do one of the setups we've used in other rooms so far. So people will just settle for singles. There's like really no way of doing it real time.
Yeah, it's kind of infamously stated, I don't know if this is actually true, but whenever I was learning this run, I always heard that even the task had actually, even when the task was being created, there was a bit of difficulty getting doubles in that boss, so...
I would not be surprised.
Yeah. You know, if task struggles is something, that's probably a good sign that you might not want to go for it. So like I said before, now with the Xbox fight, runners have basically entered a second sort of rapid boss chain, and at this point they're going to go fight Ridley. At least the runners who have beaten Xbox are going to go fight Ridley, but first they have to do a little section with a secret research facility with Metroids that is one of the many countdowns in this game.
Yeah, it's like an extremely small section. And you'll exit in like 5 seconds, unless you really get messed up by Metroids, so shouldn't be a big deal.
So now Pollsmor is going to finish up this text box, and he's going to be going back into... You're going back into Sector 1, but you don't really know it, because this area you've never seen before. So it kind of like you might think you're in you might not know you're in Sector 1. Although you're technically in it, it's like an area you've never been to before, so it's completely unfamiliar to you. And you don't find out until after you leave the boss and you go to leave and you go back to the main area of Sector 1, and that's whenever you recognize it. But at this point, there's somewhat of a convenient E-tank you can get, but I don't think any of the runners, except maybe gunert, are going to go for it. And obviously, Pollsmor has already passed it, and I believe it's likely that Ross and JC are also going to pass it.
Yeah, I sincerely doubt they'll grab it at this point.
Yeah, I wasn't really sure how confident all of them felt in their Ridley fights, so... I figured if anyone had a chance of grabbing, it'd be Rossu, just because he knows he can do safe stuff like that against his opponent. So you want to explain Gold Pirates, or...?
In order to get to Ridley, you have to kill Gold Pirates that spawn, and the idea is that you want to hit them, in the back, because that's the only way you can damage them. But the developers sort of made a weird check for that. The way the game checks whether or not you're hitting them in the back is whether or not you're facing them or not. So you can shoot a beam, turn around, and the game will think, oh, well, you're shooting them from the back, but you're not actually doing that. So it'll actually damage them. So that's the main strat for getting rid of the gold pirates. It can still be kind of tricky just because I think the beam just barely does enough damage, so you want to make sure the entirety of the beam hits the gold pirates.
So for the Ridley fight agency, Pollsmor kind of already ended it. This fight is fairly short if you do everything properly. Ridley, he has a handful of attacks he'll do, and what you're primarily going to want to do is avoid getting grabbed by Ridley, like what happened to Ross. Because if you get grabbed by Ridley, you can die fairly quickly. Like Ross, okay. But you primarily what you want to do is you want to shoot him with a fully charged wave beam, diagonally shot, as in you want to shoot it diagonally through him, and then hit him with a missile, and then again repeat.
Yeah, so at this point you have plasma beam, which does damage for every frame it's inside an enemy, and since Ridley is a huge target, plasma beam does a lot of damage. So the idea is you want to sort of shoot a shot diagonally through Ridley in order to maximize damage. If he grabs you, then he sort of turns around sometimes, and it can be kind of tricky to make sure the beam like stays inside Ridley for long. So you want to avoid that generally. I mean, you have wave beam at this point, but the plasma is what gives the beam the properties of piercing enemies. Wave beam doesn't actually add damage compared to plasma beam. It just allows you to shoot through walls and stuff.
That's actually a bit of an interesting difference with Fusion, is that Wave Beam is usually one of the earlier items you can get in the game, but in Fusion it's actually gotten the very last beam upgrade.
Yep.
So at this point, doubles are as difficult as they're going to get. And you can for the normal Core X's, and this is the last boss fight with the normal Core X. And so you'll see the runners kind of struggle with getting Core X, with getting doubles on Ridley, but it's still doable. The room is definitely really tall enough.
Just because the cooldown for diffusion missiles is so long.
So Pollsmor entered what is basically the last text before you finish the game. And this is an extremely long text. For one, it's
very long.
Yeah. Even at the start, you have like the longest text sequence ever because you have this whole Adam conversation. Then you have two more text image cutscenes that pop up. And then after that, you have another Adam conversation. So this is kind of like the only break you get before Sax. The one good thing about Fusion is that the text does not really count for in-game time. So, I mean, as long as you're not in a race, you're not really too worried about it. But if you are in a race, you kind of have to focus on getting the text off the screen as quickly as possible.
Yeah, text matching is kind of a difficult skill to learn if you want to do it optimally. Generally, you hold the button, one of the directions, or A or B, to like speed up the text. But for every new text box that pops up, you have to repress the button, and you have to do it at a specific timing. And then you have to time moving on to the next text box with a different button than you're using to sort of speed up the text. That's generally how most people do it. And it's sort of a difficult timing because every text box has a different length and so on. It's like a surprisingly difficult skill.
Yeah, a lot of runners do not spend much time practicing text because in-game time is the primary time used for position on the leaderboards, but we do use real time for tie breaks, and obviously if you're in a race, you kind of want to have that advantage if you can. So it's definitely worthwhile to look into getting good text.
And despite the runners being, I think Pollsmor is probably a minute ahead of Jaysee at this point. They were still in the same line of text. That's like how long that text crawl is. though Pollsmor is heading to the final boss now.
Yeah, so for this section, there's a little bit of a... You're just going to see... The very start of the next fight is a little bit interesting, and I'm going to explain it whenever it pops up, but in more detail. But basically, you can stun lock the first phase of the it's technically the second to last final boss, the second to last boss. Which is also interesting because you can also stun lock the final boss. So the first phase of the second to last boss and the final boss can both be stun locked, which is a bit interesting. Although the stun lock you're going to see here is a bit more difficult, I would say, than the final boss stun lock.
Yeah, this particular stun lock is... if you mess it up at some point, this fight gets a little scary because then you've got to sort of tame SAX again. Make sure you set up the stun lock properly again. But the idea is you shoot a missile as soon as SAX enters the arena, and then you can shoot like a diagonal charge beam through her, and at this point you like do a little extra damage. Because she takes extra damage when she's frozen. And so you sort of set up the stun lock that way. And because Pollsmor does not use the L button for whatever reason, he doesn't shoot diagonal shots, but he shoots right next to SAX, which can take a lot of extra hits. Wow, not dying at all. That took forever.
So,
and for the second phase, yeah, go ahead.
I think part of the reason why I think Pollsmor doesn't do the diagonal shots, he plays on keyboard and emulator, so I think part of it has to do with the way his keyboard works. Like, I know whenever I tried playing a keyboard one time, I had a bit of an issue with it not letting... I couldn't, like, do jump diagonal charge shots at the same time or something. I think it's, like, something to do with you not being able to press, like, 3 keys or more or something at once.
Right. I see Ross also had a bit of issue. But he managed to set up the stun lock in a different place. So it's not too scary because he still has plenty of health. Oh, yeah, he did a lot of damage there.
And this is probably the most difficult thing to get doubles on.
Yeah.
This boss is like extremely difficult because your missiles are fully upgraded, so they're as slow and as much cooldown as there possibly can be. And on top of that, you have to worry about there being enough height. So again, like all the other Core X's, they could have got it stuck below the platform and just got free kills on it, but they would not be able to gain enough height in order to actually do the double.
Ross opted for a bit of a safe strat there because he was low on health. I think normally he tries to do doubles, but the way you do doubles on Ice Core X sort of ends with you smashing into the core after every attempt. And if you're low on health, that can quickly add up, especially because if you get hit by the beam, I think it does like 90 damage or something. It might be more even, but it gets pretty scary pretty quickly. But fortunately, at this point, you have screw attack, and if you're in the screw attack animation, you take no damage from anything the Ice Core does. You can sort of just screw attack through it, and you take no damage.
Yeah, so this did not happen to any of the runners, thankfully, but okay, so as you can see here, Pollsmor is kind of doing... There's 2 different ways to really do the stun lock on the Omega. Pollsmor did the up method, which I'm assuming, again, might have something... I don't know why he does it, actually, but for that method, you don't really have to do much to set it up. You just need to get underneath it and make sure you're in the correct spot and keep shooting upwards. But the method I think you're going to see the other 2 runners do is the diagonal method, and you basically have to shoot it with a charge shot, run away and it does a swipe, and then position yourself underneath it in a specific spot and keep shooting diagonally.
And Pollsmor finished without dying, so good job.
So congratulations to Pollsmor. He beat JC. Now just hope JC can actually finish his race. I would love it if all the runners finished.
That'd be good. I don't think any of them died at all.
And as you can see, you sort of saw the little setup that I was talking about. Rossu just did the setup I was talking about. So we have both of our winners for the matches now. Rossu won by gunert by a pretty good amount, and Pollsmor won. So now at this point, we just got to wait for gunert and JC to finish. Oh, and okay. Oh, I thought JC got it for a second. If you notice that Shine Spark they did at the end, that's also a potential low height. If you do, you will Shine Spark all the way over to the area where the Omega is, but it's a tough low height to get.
And it only saves half a second, so it's not too important.
Yeah.
I think Pollsmor was projected to beat JC, right? I think he had a slightly higher seed. Yeah.
Yeah, because like I said, Pollsmor is a 47, JC is a 48, so not too unexpected of a result, but it was still a close match either way.
Yep.
So
We're
again,
not seeing too many upsets so far.
Yeah, like I said, I think we've only had the two. I think we had one which was killing me. I can't remember which one it was. I can't. Okay, I am going to cheat a little bit and look at the bracket again.
It looks like No Life 9-Face lost to Xcloud.
Yes, that was it. I remember it was Xplow, but I couldn't remember who he beat.
Yep.
So.
Hi.
Hello.
Okay. So congratulations on completing your run. You unfortunately lost to Pollsmor.
That's fine. I lost like 40 seconds to emulator difference, being faster.
But, okay,
Nah,
you know what?
yeah.
We'll just give that to you to make you feel better. Okay.
No. I mean, even if he was on console, he still has a slightly better, probably a good 20-second in-game time better than me on that run. I'm not sure. It was an RTA PB though on these splits though.
That's good.
So there's always that.
Yeah, so I think Pollsmor, I don't know, it depends on our emulator and his text mashing. He basically got a 1:18:29, so I don't know. That sounds like a middle of the way 47, maybe?
I don't think it's quite 40 seconds on BizHawk, but it's probably somewhere like.
Well, yeah, that was a joke by JC.
It's no more than 30 seconds different. Probably closer to the 20-second mark with BizHawk.
Yeah, it was worse with VBA, which is like a full minute or something.
Yeah, it was almost a full minute, like 50 seconds to 70.
Yep.
But I mean, it was pretty good runs. What happened at the end, Ross?
You mean what happened at the everywhere?
Oh, because I thought you were ahead of Pollsmor at around sector 6.
He was ahead of Pollsmor for at least the first half of the run. But
yeah.
Ross was like so close to dying in a couple of places. He had a couple of scary run-ins.
So was I.
Yeah.
I decided, especially since I decided to skip an E-tank.
Oh yeah, you did.
I was like, screw it, let's do it.
Let's do it. I think Raj, you almost died to the Mega Core X at some point.
Yeah. I decided to go for single missiles because the potential for running into the core if you do your doubles.
Oh my! I had a situation where I could have died to Mega Core X. Well, not the Core X itself, but the actual ability part of it.
I think I was at 27 health fighting the core.
Oh my!
I can't remember.
Let's see. My favorite part of this run was Ceres. Those were some fun doubles.
So now at this point, just gotta hope gunert doesn't die, and all of our racers will actually have completed their run without dying, which is really rare in Fusion, actually.
Okay, where's gunert at now? I don't have the stream pulled up.
He is about to go. He's going to fight Ridley. He's in the room with the E-tank, with all the rippers in the E-tank, and he just grabbed the E-tank.
I thought this was supposed to be a 0% race.
It's a good idea that he grabs that many E-tanks, especially if he's not confident, because there's a lot of things that do a lot of damage at this point.
Yeah.
So Rossu got a 48, so it looks like
Pollsmor probably got a low 48, very high 47.
he got a 47.
You got 47?
Yeah.
Nice.
So if you get a 49, we'll have all three of the numbers met.
I won't have a 49. I can't hear.
But...
yeah, there's like no way in hell for me to have 20 seconds better on my splits and have a higher in-game time.
This is not Metroid 2's in-game timer.
That's fucking high, Pollsmor. Anything higher than 47 in 5 frames is high.
I agree.
Eagle endorsed.
So the one good thing is that both of you did actually tie your PBs, at least in game time PBs. So
Yeah.
you both played pretty close to your levels, at least.
Not me. I sucked.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Rossu
I was
was
gonna-
about.
He was talking about me and Pollsmor.
I was gonna ask Ross about whether or not he was happy with this run. I think
No,
there's only one
absolutely
answer.
not. This is worse than the practice race that we had earlier.
Yeah, I was talking about that earlier.
How much of it was execution besides Megacore?
There were a lot of mistakes throughout the game. For example, Sector 4 against Ceres, I didn't get the 2-shot.
Oh, that sucks.
I missed the low height. I missed the shine break.
Oh my.
So there were a lot of
Don't worry, I missed a
small things that add up.
I missed a low height too, and I sparked up instead of left when I realized it wasn't low enough. I think it is a little bit faster to spark left in Sector 4 if you miss a low height. If you notice you're too high to get it, because you still have to turn around. If you go right, you have to turn around to get the speed booster.
Eagle made that exact comment whenever you messed up the low height.
That's better to spark left if you're too high.
Yeah.
Herc didn't believe me. He thinks it makes no sense.
I see gunert beat Ridley without too much trouble, so that's good.
I think I only took like 1 hit from Ridley. That was quite interesting. He played pretty nice on facing the right direction when I wanted him to.
If I remember correctly, I think Rossu had the worst Ridley fight out of all 3.
Yeah, I got grabbed. It was unfortunate. Ridley was in like a position where he was always close to me. So he grabbed me twice. I was able to shake off.
I'm not sure. It's probably better to get grabbed than him than be constantly tailed by him and stuck in a wall.
I would say I'm like 50-50 on that, because when you get grabbed by Ridley and you shake him off, like you shoot him, you do enough damage for you to get off. He kind of stays there for a little bit, so give you a chance to get put another shot in.
Yeah.
So I mean, but you do risk getting soft locked, as we found out like a month or 2 ago that it's possible to get soft locked there.
Oh, it's been known for years that you can get soft locked in Ridley. It's a known first out of bounds type of thing.
Yeah, it's definitely something I didn't want to do, considering that my last save point.
Save state.
Not save state. Save point.
You hear that, guys? Ross is using fucking save states.
Disqualified.
Was at the Samus' spaceship just before Yakuza. I've already planned my save points. I would say that the save point at the spaceship is probably the fastest, since you're going to get there anyway.
Well,
All you
yeah.
have to do is just press A, and then right before SAX, I almost died I almost screwed up the SAX fight as well. So.
Oh my.
It was. I guess this is just my first time being in a tournament environment, so I was a little bit jittery.
Yeah, it happens.
A lot of mistakes that like uncharacteristic mistakes that I made.
I'm not sure. I think I need to get a new SP. There was probably at least 3 or 4 times in the tournament. Every time I did a jump morph, by the time I landed, Samus unmorphed at the same time. It's like I was getting quite frustrated with that.
So Arasu, obviously, your next matchup now will be against Mandatobi. So how do you plan on preparing for that matchup?
Well, there's really not much I can do as far as improving my time. I'm kind of like on the border of 46 and 45 right now. So it's really just getting over the fact that I'm in a tournament environment and just playing like I would in a normal like PB attempt, or just a casual race or something like that. And I would play better that way, I think.
Yeah, and I would definitely make sure to warm up for it, because you got a 48 here, and that's also Mandatobi's PB, so I definitely would not want to be playing at that level against him. You run a really big chance of losing.
Looking at my splits, it looked like I was on a 46 pace after Ceres, and then when I missed the low height and the shine break, that's when it just went downhill. So I mean, simple mistakes like that add up is something that I want to avoid for the next game.
So JC, I do have some good news for you. I think your next matchup, you're gonna have to fight the winner of Fishhead 419 and Trog. So I was gonna go ahead and ask, what do you do to plan for that match?
I'm going to do 0%. I don't know what I'm going to do different on that one. I'm probably just going to treat it like a PB attempt. Minus the reset on the climb.
Funnily enough, because of upsets, Pollsmor, he's actually going to have to fight Exodo.
That wasn't an upset. Or was it?
I consider it an upset.
He's gonna have to fight Exodo, probably, unless Exodo dies, because JRP is losing to Hubert.
I think JRP not proceeding is kind of an upset. I don't know about you.
It totally
I
ruined
mean,
my bracket.
I think it's an upset, you know, him being first seed and everything, that's kind of a...
Yeah, Pollsmor's a higher seed than me. It wasn't an upset.
Well, I was more referring to the fact that Pollsmor's now going to fight probably Exodo. If JRP did not lose round 1 and get upset by Hubert, he likely would have been fighting JRP, and that would have been a much more difficult matchup. But now he'll get to fight his next round. He'll actually probably, again, assuming Exodo doesn't die, he'll actually get to fight someone with a worse PB than him. So that's a nice thing to be able to do. Have that happen 2 runs in a row, especially in winner's bracket.
Yeah, Pollsmor has a very good bracket right now.
Yeah, he's got one that's pretty nice.
Mostly because of JRP getting upset, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean he's got it pretty nice. He might make he'll probably make it to the semifinals, maybe.
Most
I'm
likely.
not gonna lie. When Pollsmor attempted the sack skip and he did the frame perfect jump, when you jump when you're not in morph ball, I seriously thought that he was going to die there.
Did you? Were you actually watching him?
I was. I had the tournament stream up.
Oh my!
That was very close, and I was
that part
expecting him to die.
I would have laughed. I mean, I already knew by the time I started messing up a few times. Like, yep, I just need Pollsmor to die to Nightmare. It's like, yeah.
So it looks like Gunert's about to kill Sax.
Yeah, he's doing the classic. That's what I used to do when I when I started out the game. It's like a very easy way to kill it, but it also takes forever because SAX doesn't take increased damage unless she's frozen. So you need a lot of shots to pull that off. But it's a very safe way of killing SAX, so I can definitely understand going for it. Yeah, Gunert has some good strats for just proceeding. They're a bit slower, of course, but they're very, very safe.
Yeah, but then I'm not sure if Gunert's done any D-Rust for this tournament or not. He kind of gave up this game quite a while back.
Yeah.
So it's really nice seeing a lot of former runners come back just for this tournament, as well as new people for the tournament.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic that we were able to get 32 people together for this tourney.
Yeah, and I also want to mention this. I'm thankful that none of the runners said this happened, but for the second phase of the Sax fight, there's a very real chance you can actually soft lock on that fight. But thankfully, it did not happen to any of the runners.
Does anyone know exactly what causes it to happen?
As far as the coding, not exactly. It just happens if you kill it while it's trying to turn around. For whatever reason, that interrupts the die animation.
I see.
And then that's about all I know about it. We might have to get Pete to look into it or something. Or Biosport. They can probably give us a better answer.
So here's hoping that Gunert does well in the final boss. I don't think he's safe for a while, but he has a lot of E-tanks, and he seems to know what he's doing in terms of safe strats. So I think he should be good.
That's good.
Yeah, he's got a lot of E-tanks, so I'm pretty sure he'll realize if he's doing something wrong and then make corrections. You know, unlike number 1 seed JRP, who didn't have that many E-tanks and was not able to make corrections in time.
The shots are actually tonight.
So, funnily enough, one of the things with the final boss is that if you're space jumping above it when you enter the room, it will actually, and even after, I think in the second phase of the fight, it does it as well. He'll do this thing called Pogo, where it keeps trying to jump up and down. I think Gunner actually tried to do it, but he mistimed his face jump and got smacked. But you can. It's sort of a funny thing to see. It doesn't really have any purpose, but it looks kind of funny.
It is interesting.
Yeah, so Gunner got the stun lock, so it was easy.
Yeah.
Good job.
So this is the second race of the tournament where we've had 2 races at once where none of the runners died. So
I love
again,
it.
congratulations to all of you guys for not dying.
Seems like a very difficult task in this tournament.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of deaths so far.
Like 3 out of.
I'm counting at least.
I've
4
only.
different deaths.
You seen how many?
Hello.
4 different.
4.
Yeah.
I missed. Was there a death earlier today that I missed?
Maybe.
Maybe. How's it going, Gunner?
Good. I just want to point out that is the first full run of Metroid Fusion I've done in like a year.
Yeah.
Gunner, you might want to dive
Yep.
done.
Oh yeah, I should probably do that.
Yeah.
And I might have actually PB'd.
Sweet.
Nice. Yeah, we were just saying not too long ago. It's like how you left this game quite a while ago, and then we're not sure if you did any D restaurants before this.
Oh no, I haven't touched. I mean, I did like a little bit at SGQ, but that's it. I haven't touched this game since I started running Prime and a Zero Mission, basically.
Okay, that's
Well,
cool.
Yeah.
at least according to SRL, even with a delayed .done, you improved your RTA PB by over 2 minutes. So
Yeah, I might actually have finally reached my goal of sub-hour. That is the one thing I wanted out of this game.
Let's see, 149 is a 121.
Yeah, that's possible.
Yeah, I don't know how good my text mastering was though, so it's difficult for me to say.
Yeah, a lot of it depends on your text mashing if you do any extra pauses.
Yeah. I'm actually amazed I finished because I almost died a few times. Like, it was really sketchy.
I mean, you look good against like most of the bosses. You had no issues with like Ridley or SX or the Omega at the end.
Yeah, I did grab a couple extra safety tanks though, so
Which is completely understandable.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, if you don't throw come through, might as well grab the extra safety.
Yeah, like I don't usually grab the one at the Ridley section of Sector 1,
Oh yeah.
for an example.
It's a quick grab, so it makes sense.
Yeah. Then I suppose we'll just wait for the credits here and then call it good.
yeah, I think the only boss where I actually saw you where you didn't necessarily do the best strat was against Yakuza. You didn't do the missile strat, which I think was the only.
Yeah, that one's
Yeah.
hard to learn. That one's pretty hard to learn and get down.
Yeah, and I screwed up Sarah's pretty badly. I just kind of had to wing it.
It happens.
Oh, you were definitely not the only one who did that. So
Oh.
it's all good.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I think Rossu also. There's
It
other.
Looked a bit sketchy.
Yeah,
But-
it took me 3 shots to kill Saris.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I couldn't remember. Yeah, because you missed the first shot, right?
I missed the second shot.
Okay, no, I'm thinking of Gunner. He missed the first shot.
Did you go for a
Yeah.
bad pattern, Ross, or did you just miss it?
I just missed it. I shot too early.
Oh, that.
It's
That
once again,
sucks.
it's something that I attribute to just jitters.
Yeah, and watching the Speed Gaming channel while you're racing kind of adds to that.
I wanted to
Triple water.
see, whether or not I was going to beat Pollsmor.
You should have beat Pollsmor.
I should have. And hopefully I can see him in the tournament sometime.
Yeah. Yeah, I knew going into this race I had a high chance of losing to Pollsmor this time, which is fine. I did not. I don't think I saw any Odins in this. This race made me sad. There we go. I'm happy now. All right. So looking forward into the tournament, Gunner. What do you think about doing
101.
differently?
Differently, I would definitely practice first. Because, doing a run after a year of not doing runs is a little sketchy. Yeah.
Yeah, your next opponent is going to be Flipside, and he has a 53. So
Yeah.
I would definitely get grinding out some runs.
Yeah, well, I just got booted out of the Metroid Prime tournament, so I'll actually have time to do that now.
Nice.
Yeah. So 101 though, if no one heard me. I don't know.
I didn't hear you until right
Yeah,
now.
I didn't want to say anything, but I figured it wasn't gonna be sub-hour because I play on Wii U, which is worse RTA, and my 58's a 132 something. So
Dang.
I was kind of
Oh,
afraid
well.
that it was gonna be that, but I didn't want to.
Oh, well.
I mean, you have a shot in Deuce's bracket of getting the sub-hour.
Yeah. But no, overall, I don't know if there's much else I would really do differently. Like bosses other than like Ceres went basically perfectly. Especially like Nightmare. He went like absolutely perfectly for my standards at least. I could probably do a little better, but overall it was fantastic.
Yeah, you
Yep.
did pretty confident for the most part
Yep.
in what you did.
I had a pretty bad nightmare.
And then I got the quick kill on the Omega Metroid, which I was not expecting to nail the first time because when I was doing runs consistently, I always had a bit of trouble with it. So that was nice.
I'm not sure. Sometimes taking a break and coming back to it makes some things a lot easier when you come back to it.
Yeah, definitely.
Not everything. Some things.
Yeah.
I guess I would say for my last comment is to just make sure you follow Jack879. And unless you guys have anything else for me, that's all I have.
I think we're mostly done anyway. Yeah, it was a good race.
All right. Yeah,
All
GG
right.
everyone. Thanks for the race.
All right,
Thanks for
guys.
thanks for the race, everyone. Thanks to Fiesel and Speed Gaming for hosting this tournament. I don't think there is anything else tonight.
Oh yeah, and I wanted to mention this. He wasn't on stream because he wasn't in a match technically, but Hercules Ventress also entered the race just to practice, and he actually won the race out of all the other runners. So
Oh,
Don't
really?
Don't give him the glory. Jeez.
I'm always saying it. Did he even say what his aim time was? Because he had a 1.7. He had like a low 117 RTA. He might have got a 46.
And he probably wasn't capturing it.
As usual.
Okay, guys. I think that's all that we have. Join us tomorrow at 7 a.m. Looks like the Minish Cap Finals are going on. So that should be exciting. That's been a pretty fun tournament to watch. Of course, that's going to start way too early for me, but that's 6 a.m. my time.
Tomorrow
Everyone should
we
definitely
also
watch
have,
Minish Cap.
Tomorrow we also have Dragon Fangs, who I'm looking forward to see race. I haven't seen him do Fusion in a long time.
Yeah, and then I saw him D-Rust like a month ago. Then I haven't really heard much since. I think he did. Did he end up getting a 46? Did you?
I don't think so, no.
Okay.
Yeah,
and then
actually, tomorrow we at 2 p.m. Eastern we have another double race, which is No Life 9 face versus Boxbot, and Hercules Ventress versus Explode Your Face. And then at 2 hours after that, basically right after that race, we have Dragon Fangs versus Abortion Shark.
Yep, and then Dragon Fangs, he's pretty big in the tasking community. He's made his current 0% task, and then he recently completed a Metroid Zero Mission 80% task. So he really knows what he's talking about when it comes to a bunch of small things about this game, about why things work, why things don't work, that kind of stuff. So it'll be a fun race watching him. And then with that, I guess we're going to hand it over to Fiesel. Thanks for watching, guys.
I just wanted to mention I just double checked my PB. I PB'd by 3 minutes somehow.
Nice.
So yeah.
Nice.
All right. Anyways, thanks again for the race, guys. I'm gonna head out now.
All right.
Bye bye.
All right, that's all we got for you for tonight. We have the Minish Cap Grand Finals starting tomorrow at 7 a.m. Eastern Time. That is just over 10 hours from now, I guess. And we've got, let's see, after that Fusion, and I think that's about it for tomorrow. Oh no, we got Fusion, 2 matches of Fusion for you tomorrow, and a match of Metroid Prime. So a full day of speed gaming for you tomorrow, starting at 7 a.m. Eastern Time. See you next time.